The massive alien ship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system without warning, its crystalline hull reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Haven 7, Earth's primary orbital station, watching the vessel approach with a mixture of excitement and carefully controlled fear. This was it, the moment humanity had dreamed of and prepared for since the first. Radio telescopes had detected structured signals from beyond the stars. Dr. Lisa Campbell joined him at the viewport, her tablet displaying the latest sensor readings from the approaching vessel. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Haven 7, and its design followed no principles of engineering that human minds could easily grasp. Sections of it seemed to phase in and out of visible reality, while other parts appeared to be made of living crystal that pulsed with its own internal light. 5 different species aboard, Campbell reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The computer's having trouble making sense of their biological signatures, but it's definitely a mixed crew. This isn't just one alien race making contact, Jake. It's some kind of coalition. Morrison nodded, his military training keeping him focused on the practical details, even as part of his mind marveled at the reality of the situation. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they were about to meet not just one alien species, but 5. The implications were staggering. Captain Ryan Torres approached from the communications station, his face showing the strain of the past few hours. "They're requesting permission to dock, sir. Their message is being transmitted in perfect English, which is either very impressive or very concerning. They say they're here as representatives of something called the Galactic Council for a Species Evaluation and Classification Review." The words sent a chill down Morrison's spine. Classification review sounded ominous, like humanity was being judged by some cosmic authority they'd never known existed. He forced himself to remain calm, remembering his training and the countless hours of preparation that had gone into this moment. "Tell them they're welcome aboard Haven 7, Morrison decided. "Standard diplomatic protocols. Full honor guard, but keep weapons powered down. We want to make a good impression." The alien ship attached itself to Haven 7's docking bay in a way that seemed to defy physics. Rather than using mechanical docking clamps, the crystalline vessel simply flowed into the station's hull like liquid mercury, creating a seamless connection that sealed itself with organic precision. The sight made several of the human crew members step back instinctively. When the airlock finally opened, the beings that emerged were unlike anything humanity had imagined. The first was clearly the leader, a tall creature with skin that shifted between different colors like an oil slick. Its eyes were too large for its head, and they seemed to contain swirling galaxies in their depths. It moved with fluid grace, each step calculated and purposeful. Behind it came a creature that looked like it was carved from living crystal, its body refracting light in impossible ways. Geometric patterns flowed across its surface like digital displays, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The third being was the most disturbing to human eyes. It appeared to be a cluster of floating organs, connected by threads of light, pulsing with a rhythm that suggested a collective consciousness rather than individual thought. It didn't speak at all, but somehow its intentions were clear to everyone present. The fourth creature was barely visible, a vaguely humanoid shape composed of what looked like concentrated starlight. It flickered in and out of visibility, and when it moved, it left trails of luminous gas that smelled faintly of ozone and distant suns. The final being was perhaps the most alien of all, despite looking superficially similar to a human. It was too perfect, too symmetrical, with features that seemed designed by committee rather than evolved through natural selection. Its smile was exactly the right width, its eyes exactly the right distance apart, and the effect was deeply unsettling. The oil-slick creature stepped forward and spoke in flawless English, its voice carrying harmonics that human ears weren't designed to process. "I am Dr. Zextara of the Galactic Council's Xenobiology Division. We have come to conduct a standard evaluation of your species for inclusion in our galactic database. This process is routine and necessary for all newly contacted civilizations. Morrison stepped forward, grateful for the hours of diplomatic training that kept his voice steady. Welcome to Haven 7. I'm Commander Jake Morrison, representing the Earth Defense Force. This is Dr. Lisa Campbell, our chief xenobiologist, and Captain Ryan Torres, our diplomatic officer. We're honored by your visit. Dr. Zexthara's skin shifted to a pattern that might have indicated pleasure or amusement. The honor is ours, Commander Morrison. Your species has been observed from a distance for some time, and we must admit your development has been most unusual. Earth appears to be what we classify as a death world, yet somehow you have not only survived but thrived. This presents certain theoretical challenges to our understanding of life in the galaxy. The crystalline being chimed in with its wind chime voice. I am Verkalen of the Nexus Collective. We have studied thousands of species across the galaxy, and Earth's environmental conditions are among the most hostile we have encountered. The fact that complex life evolved here at all is remarkable. The fact that it produced a technological civilization is unprecedented. Dr. Campbell found her scientific curiosity overcoming her nervousness. You call Earth a death world. What makes you classify it that way? The floating cluster of organs pulsed brighter, and somehow everyone present understood its communication. It was HiveMind Unit 7742 from Andromeda's Prime, and its message was clear. The gravity was crushing, the atmosphere was toxic, the temperature variations were lethal, and the radiation levels from the sun should have sterilized the planet eons ago. The gaseous being, Wisptar from the nebula colonies, added its observations in a voice like distant thunder. Your magnetic field fluctuates wildly, your tectonic plates are constantly shifting, and your weather patterns are chaotic beyond any mathematical model we possess. Most disturbing of all, your planet is infested with predatory life forms that actively hunt and consume each other. By all galactic standards, Earth should be a barren rock. The too-perfect humanoid, who introduced itself as Mimic Form 23 from the adaptation worlds, concluded the initial assessment. Yet, here you stand, not merely surviving, but building orbital habitats and developing faster-than-light communication. You have somehow turned the most hostile environment in the known galaxy into a thriving cradle of civilization. This should be impossible. Morrison felt a strange mixture of pride and apprehension. Humanity had always known Earth was a tough place to live, but hearing it described as the galaxy's most hostile environment was both flattering and terrifying. If these beings were impressed by human survival, what did that say about the rest of the galaxy? We'd like to begin our formal evaluation immediately, Dr. Zexthara continued. With your permission, we'll need to conduct biological assessments, psychological evaluations, and environmental studies. The process should take several days, after which we'll submit our findings to the Galactic Council for review. As Morrison agreed to the evaluation, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to discover just how strange they really were in the cosmic scheme of things. The aliens' initial reactions suggested that Earth wasn't just unusual, it was unprecedented. And that realization filled him with both excitement and dread. The medical bay of Haven 7 had been transformed into something resembling a laboratory from a science fiction movie. Alien instruments hummed and clicked around the room, their purposes mysterious to the human observers. Dr. Lisa Campbell stood in the center of it all. Electrodes attached to her skin while scanners of unknown design mapped every molecule of her body. Dr. Zexthara studied the readings with growing confusion, its oil-slick skin shifting between shades of deep purple and alarming yellow. The other alien researchers clustered around their instruments, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of chimes, pulses, and harmonic vibrations that made the air itself seem to vibrate. This cannot be correct, Zexthara finally announced, its voice carrying notes of disbelief. According to our instruments, Dr. Campbell's bone density is approximately 3 times what we would expect for a creature of her size. Her skeleton should collapse under its own weight, yet she moves with apparent ease. Verkalen, the crystalline being, chimed in agreement. The muscle fiber density is equally impossible. Her cardiovascular system is operating at pressures that would rupture the circulatory systems of most galactic species. The heart alone is pumping with enough force to damage delicate tissues throughout her body. Campbell tried to remain still as the scanners did their work, but she couldn't help smiling at the alien's confusion. That's normal for us. We evolved under Earth's gravity, so our bodies adapted to handle the pressure. What seems impossible to you is just Tuesday for a human. HiveMind Unit 7742 pulsed with colors that somehow conveyed deep concern. Its collective consciousness was struggling to process what it was observing. The electromagnetic patterns flowing from its organic components translated into concepts of structural impossibility and biological contradiction. The atmospheric composition she breathes, Wisptar added, its gaseous form flickering with agitation. 21% oxygen. This concentration would be lethal to most life forms. Oxygen is a highly reactive element that causes cellular damage through oxidation. Your species should be poisoning itself with every breath. Dr. Campbell gestured to her lungs as the scanners mapped their internal structure. We have antioxidant systems built into our biology. Our cells are designed to handle oxygen exposure. In fact, we need it to survive. Without oxygen, we die in minutes. The too-perfect humanoid, Mimic Form 23, tilted its head in a way that was almost human but not quite right. We have studied the atmospheric compositions of over 10,000 inhabited worlds. None maintain oxygen levels above 8%. Your planet's atmosphere is essentially a slow-burning combustion mixture. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez entered the medical bay at Dr. Campbell's request, wearing standard workout clothes and carrying a water bottle. She was a marathon runner, chosen specifically for this demonstration because of her exceptional endurance even by human standards. Amy's going to show you some basic human physical capabilities, Campbell explained to the increasingly nervous alien delegation. Nothing extreme, just a normal workout routine that any healthy human can perform. Rodriguez stepped onto the station's treadmill and began running at a moderate pace. The alien instruments immediately began registering readings that caused several of the observers to step back in alarm. Her heart rate climbed to levels that would indicate cardiac arrest in most species. Her body temperature began rising to what the aliens considered fever levels. Her breathing became rapid and deep, pulling in massive quantities of the toxic oxygen mixture. "She is dying," Zexthara announced with certainty. Her vital signs indicate complete system failure. Her core temperature has risen beyond the thermal tolerance of organic tissue. Her cardiovascular system is operating at emergency levels that cannot be sustained. Rodriguez continued running, her pace steady and controlled. After 20 minutes, she increased her speed. The alien instruments registered what they interpreted as catastrophic biological breakdown. Her muscles were producing lactic acid at levels that should have caused immediate paralysis. Her body was sweating, releasing precious fluids at a rate that should have led to rapid dehydration. "This is impossible," Vorkalin chimed, its crystalline structure resonating with harmonics of disbelief. "She should have collapsed 15 minutes ago. Her tissues should be cooking from the internal heat. Her muscles should be seizing from the acid buildup." After 30 minutes of running, Rodriguez stepped off the treadmill, breathing hard but clearly in no distress. She took a drink from her water bottle and smiled at the stunned alien observers. That was just a warm-up. On Earth, humans regularly run for hours at a time. Some of us run distances of over 26 miles without stopping. The collective gasp from the alien delegation was audible, even from HiveMind Unit 7742, which had no recognizable breathing apparatus. They stared at Rodriguez as if she were some kind of supernatural being, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of shock and confusion. "The readings must be wrong," Mimic Form 23 insisted, its perfect features showing the first signs of distress. No organic life form can function under such extreme physiological stress. The energy expenditure alone should have depleted her cellular resources. Engineer Pete Hamilton arrived for the next demonstration, carrying a complex mechanical puzzle that had been designed to test human problem-solving abilities under pressure. The aliens watched as he began working on the device while Rodriguez continued her workout routine nearby, now doing push-ups and sit-ups that caused the alien instruments to register readings they interpreted as signs of imminent death. Pete's going to solve this puzzle while his body is under stress, Campbell explained. Humans are capable of complex cognitive function even when our bodies are operating at what you consider emergency levels. Hamilton's hands moved quickly over the puzzle, his breathing elevated from the exercise he'd done before arriving. His heart rate was up, his body temperature was higher than normal, and stress hormones were flooding his system. By alien standards, he should have been delirious with panic and unable to form coherent thoughts. Instead, he solved the puzzle in record time, his mind working clearly despite his body's stress state. He handed the completed device to Zexthara with a smile. The trick is to not overthink it. Sometimes the best solutions come when you're not trying too hard. The alien delegation huddled together, their various forms of communication creating a complex dialogue that lasted several minutes. When they finally turned back to the humans, their expressions and emanations conveyed deep concern. "We need to contact the Galactic Council immediately," Zexthara announced. "Your species displays biological capabilities that violate several fundamental laws of organic chemistry and physics. Either our instruments are malfunctioning, or we are observing something that should not exist according to our understanding of life in the universe." Wisptar's gaseous form flickered with patterns that suggested fear. "The energy efficiency alone is terrifying. Your bodies operate at performance levels that would require massive biological infrastructure, yet you maintain these capabilities in compact, mobile forms. This suggests evolutionary pressures far beyond anything we have encountered." Campbell looked at the alien delegation with a mixture of sympathy and amusement. "We're just getting started. Wait until you see what humans can do when we're actually trying." The aliens exchanged communications that clearly conveyed their growing alarm. They were beginning to realize that their initial assessment of Earth as a hostile environment had been a dramatic understatement. They weren't just looking at survivors of a death world. They were looking at creatures that had been forged by conditions so extreme that they had become something unprecedented in the galaxy's long history of life. The observation lounge of Haven 7 had become an impromptu laboratory for studying human social behavior, and the alien delegation was growing more disturbed with each passing hour. They watched through reinforced windows as Colonel Sam Mitchell conducted a training exercise in the station's gymnasium, his voice carrying clearly through the intercom system. "Move it, Rodriguez," Mitchell barked at the lieutenant who had demonstrated her running abilities earlier. "My grandmother could do better push-ups than that, and she's been dead for 20 years. Despite his harsh words, the aliens could detect genuine concern in his voice patterns, and when Rodriguez stumbled slightly, Mitchell was immediately at her side to check if she was injured. Dr. Zexthara's skin shifted through a rapid series of colors that indicated deep confusion. The human leader is simultaneously attacking and protecting the subordinate. This behavioral pattern suggests severe psychological instability. In most galactic cultures, such contradictory actions would indicate a complete breakdown of social order, Verkalen chimed with harmonics that conveyed bewilderment. "Our analysis of their emotional states shows that both individuals are experiencing what they call affection toward each other. Yet their actions and words suggest hostility. This combination should be impossible in any rational social structure." The floating organs of Hivemind Unit 7742 pulsed with colors that somehow conveyed the concept of paradox. Its collective consciousness was struggling to process how humans could maintain social cohesion while engaging in behavior that would destroy any other species' community bonds. Dr. Kate Williams, the station's psychologist, had been observing the alien delegation's reactions with professional interest. She approached their group with a gentle smile, her movements calm and non-threatening. "You seem confused by our training methods? Would you like me to explain human emotional psychology?" "Please," Wisptar replied, its gaseous form flickering with patterns that suggested desperate curiosity. We have studied the psychological patterns of over 5,000 species, and none display such contradictory emotional states. How do you maintain social stability when you're individuals simultaneously? Experience opposing feelings? Williams gestured toward the training area where Mitchell was now helping Rodriguez through a difficult exercise routine, his instructions firm but encouraging. Humans are capable of experiencing multiple emotions at the same time. Colonel Mitchell cares deeply about Lieutenant Rodriguez's well-being, which is why he pushes her to improve her performance. The harsh words are meant to motivate her, while his underlying concern ensures she doesn't get hurt. The two perfect features of Mimic Form 23 displayed confusion that looked almost human but felt wrong in ways that made the humans uncomfortable. This emotional complexity should paralyze your decision-making processes. How do you function when your emotional responses are contradictory? We call it being human, Williams replied with a shrug. We've learned to process complex emotions and still make rational decisions. In fact, our emotional complexity often helps us find creative solutions that pure logic might miss. The aliens watched as a group of off-duty personnel entered the recreation area. Pilots Danny Clark and Steve Parker sat down at a table with Communications Officer Lisa Grant, and they began what appeared to be a competitive game involving small rectangular cards and circular tokens. Poker, Williams explained, noting the aliens' interest. It's a game that combines probability, psychology, and deception. The players try to win by having the best combination of cards or by convincing others that they have better cards than they actually do. The alien delegation observed in horror as the humans began lying to each other with casual ease. Clark claimed to have excellent cards while his body language suggested otherwise. Parker made statements that were clearly false, and Grant responded with her own carefully crafted deceptions. Yet all three were clearly enjoying themselves, laughing and joking between rounds. They are systematically deceiving each other. Zextara observed, its skin taking on shades that indicated alarm. This behavior should destroy all trust between them. Their social bonds should be dissolving with each act of deception. Instead, the aliens watched as the poker game continued with increasing laughter and friendly banter. When Clark finally won a hand through an elaborate bluff, the other players congratulated him on his deception skills. When Parker caught Grant at a lie, he complimented her on her poker face. The very acts that should have destroyed their relationship seemed to strengthen them. Humans can separate different types of truth, Williams explained, fascinated by the aliens' reactions. They understand that lying in a game context is different from lying about important matters. They can deceive each other in play while maintaining complete honesty in serious situations. HiveMind Unit 7742's organic components pulsed with patterns that conveyed the concept of impossibility. Its collective consciousness simply could not process how beings could maintain trust while practicing deception, how they could compete while cooperating, how they could lie while remaining honest. The situation became even more confusing when the poker game ended and the three players immediately began working together on a technical problem that had been troubling the communications department. Clark, who had been lying skillfully just moments before, provided completely accurate information about signal processing. Parker, who had been trying to deceive his friends, offered genuine assistance with equipment calibration. Grant, who had been bluffing throughout the game, gave honest assessments of system performance. "This is madness," Vorkalen chimed, its crystalline structure resonating with harmonics of distress. They transitioned between deception and honesty without any apparent psychological adjustment period. They should be suffering from severe cognitive dissonance. The aliens became even more disturbed when they observed Captain Ryan Torres mediating a dispute between two crew members. Engineer Bobby Chun and technician Lavra Davis had been arguing about resource allocation, their voices raised and their body language suggesting potential violence. In most galactic cultures, such conflicts would require immediate intervention by security forces. Instead, Torres simply listened to both sides, asked clarifying questions, and helped them find a compromise that satisfied both parties. Within minutes, Chen and Davis were working together on a solution, their earlier conflicts seemingly forgotten. They even shared a joke about their argument, treating their disagreement as a minor inconvenience rather than a serious social breach. How do they resolve conflicts without violence or permanent social damage? Mimic Form 23 asked, its perfect features showing genuine confusion. Their emotional responses suggest they were prepared to fight, yet they immediately returned to cooperative behavior. Williams smiled at the question. Humans distinguish between personal conflicts and professional relationships. We can disagree strongly about specific issues while maintaining respect for each other as individuals. Conflict resolution is a learned skill that most humans develop as they mature. The final demonstration of human social complexity came when the aliens observed a group of crew members dealing with bad news. Word had come that a supply mission had been delayed, meaning that several crew members would have to extend their tours of duty away from their families. The aliens expected to see despair, anger, or social breakdown. Instead, they witnessed something that defied all their understanding of group psychology. The crew members supported each other emotionally while simultaneously solving the practical problems caused by the delay. They expressed frustration and disappointment while maintaining their commitment to their duties. They comforted those who were most affected while organizing work schedules to minimize the impact on everyone. They are experiencing negative emotions while maintaining positive social cohesion, Wisptar observed, its gaseous form flickering with patterns that suggested profound confusion. They are simultaneously individual and collective, selfish and altruistic, emotional and rational. Dr. Williams nodded, recognizing the aliens' struggle to understand human nature. Humans are complex beings. We contain multitudes, as one of our poets once wrote. We can hold contradictory ideas, feel conflicting emotions, and still function as individuals and as a society. The alien delegation gathered in a corner of the observation lounge, their various forms of communication creating a complex dialogue that lasted for over an hour. When they finally turned back to the humans, their expressions and emanations conveyed deep concern and growing fear. We need to accelerate our evaluation, Zexthara announced. Your species displays psychological patterns that violate fundamental principles of social organization. You maintain stability through instability, cooperation through competition, and honesty through deception. This should result in immediate social collapse, yet you have built a spacefaring civilization. The aliens were beginning to realize that human psychology was even more terrifying than human biology. They were dealing with beings whose minds operated according to principles that made no sense according to galactic standards, yet somehow produced results that were undeniably effective. The shuttle bay of Haven 7 filled with the sound of atmospheric processors as the alien delegation prepared for their most dangerous mission yet, visiting the surface of Earth. Despite their growing terror at human capabilities, their scientific curiosity demanded that they observe humanity's home environment directly. The shuttle itself was a marvel of human engineering that made the aliens uncomfortable, designed to survive re-entry through an atmosphere that could burn metal and land on a surface with crushing gravity. Captain Tony Lewis checked his equipment one final time, his movements calm and efficient despite the fact that he was about to take 5 terrified alien researchers into what they considered the most hostile environment in the known galaxy. Environmental scientist Dr. Helen Brooks joined him at the shuttle controls, her cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the palpable fear radiating from their passengers. First stop is the Pacific Ocean, Brooks announced as the shuttle detached from Haven 7 and began its descent toward Earth. We'll be visiting the Mariana Trench Research Station so you can see how humans explore the deepest parts of our oceans. The alien delegation huddled together in the passenger compartment, their various forms of protective equipment humming and glowing around them. Dr. Zexthara's skin had turned a deep blue-black that indicated extreme stress, while Verkalan's crystalline structure was resonating with harmonics of pure terror. Even HiveMind Unit 7742 had drawn its organic components into a tight cluster, Its collective consciousness overwhelmed by the approaching nightmare, the shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere with a violence that would have destroyed most galactic vessels. The heat generated by atmospheric friction glowed around them like a furnace, and the gravitational forces pressed down on them with crushing intensity. Yet the shuttle's hull held firm, its design perfectly adapted to survive what the aliens considered an impossible journey. "Your atmospheric entry procedures are insane," Wisptar communicated, its gaseous form compressed into the smallest possible space. "The thermal and kinetic stresses should have vaporized this vessel. How do you routinely survive passage through such a hostile atmospheric barrier?" Lewis smiled as he adjusted the shuttle's trajectory. "We've been doing this for over a century. The trick is understanding the physics and building accordingly. Earth's atmosphere is thick, but it's predictable once you know how to work with it." The Pacific Ocean stretched out below them, its surface deceptively calm from altitude. The aliens stared in horror at the vast expanse of liquid that covered most of the planet's surface. To them, it represented an impossible barrier to civilization, a corrosive medium that should have prevented any complex life from developing. "The ocean covers 70% of your planet's surface," Mimic Form 23 observed, its perfect features showing signs of strain. "Most galactic civilizations develop on dry land with minimal liquid water. How did you build a technological society when most of your world is covered by this corrosive medium?" Brooks checked her instruments as they approached the research station. "We learned to work with the ocean, not against it. Humans have been sailing these waters for thousands of years. We've built cities on coastlines, harvested food from the sea, and used the ocean for transportation and communication." The underwater research station came into view, a collection of interconnected domes and tubes that somehow maintained structural integrity thousands of meters below the surface. The pressure at this depth was over 1,000 times what most galactic species could survive, yet humans worked there routinely. "The pressure differential should crush any artificial structure," Zexthara noted, its skin showing patterns of disbelief. "Your species has built a permanent habitat in conditions that would implode most galactic spacecraft." Marine biologist Nick Adams welcomed them to the station via video link, his image transmitted from the crushing depths where he worked daily. Behind him, the aliens could see creatures that looked like nightmare fuel, massive tentacled things with too many eyes, fish with glowing lures and razor-sharp teeth, and other beings that seemed designed by a malevolent intelligence. "Welcome to the abyss," Adams said cheerfully, apparently oblivious to the fact that he was surrounded by horrors that would give most galactic species permanent psychological trauma. "We're currently studying the ecosystem around a deep sea volcanic vent. The water temperature here reaches over 400 degrees, and the pressure would crush an unprotected human instantly." The aliens watched in fascination and terror as Adams casually swam among creatures that looked like they belonged in the deepest levels of galactic hell. Giant tube worms the size of tree trunks waved in the current, while spider-like creatures with legs spanning several meters scuttled across the seafloor. Yet Adams moved through this nightmare landscape with the confidence of someone taking a stroll through a garden. How does he maintain psychological stability in such a hostile environment? Hive Mind Unit 7742 pulsed its collective consciousness, struggling to process the scene. The predatory life forms alone should trigger paralyzing fear responses. Brooks smiled at the question. "Nick's been working down there for years. Humans adapt to extreme environments remarkably well. We find beauty and wonder in places that most species would consider uninhabitable." The next stop was Antarctica, where the shuttle landed on a research base surrounded by ice that stretched to the horizon in all directions. The temperature readings made the aliens retreat further into their protective equipment, and the wind speeds registered as potentially lethal by galactic standards. Dr. Carl Johnson, the station's meteorologist, met them at the landing pad wearing what appeared to be inadequate protection against the lethal cold. His breath created clouds of vapor that instantly froze in the air, and his exposed skin showed the effects of the harsh environment, yet he seemed completely comfortable. "Welcome to the bottom of the world," Johnson said, his voice carrying. Clearly, despite the howling wind. We're experiencing a mild day today, only -40 degrees with winds at 30 miles per hour. Perfect weather for a tour. The aliens stared at him in horror. The temperature was well below the freezing point of most biological fluids, and the wind was strong enough to damage most galactic structures. Yet Johnson stood there as if he were discussing pleasant spring weather. This environment should kill any organic life form within minutes, Verkalen chimed, its crystalline structure resonating with harmonics of terror. The thermal stress alone should cause immediate system failure. How do you maintain biological function at such extreme temperatures? Johnson gestured toward the research station, where other humans could be seen working outside in the killer. Cold, humans are remarkably adaptable. We've developed clothing and shelter systems that let us work in environments from the equator to the poles. Our ancestors survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. The final stop was the Sahara Desert, where the shuttle landed on a research station that studied climate patterns and geological formations. The temperature was over 50 degrees Celsius, hot enough to cook most galactic species, and the environment was so dry that it would desiccate unprepared organic matter within hours. Volcanologist Dr. Mary Foster greeted them wearing light clothing that provided minimal protection against the murderous heat. Sand whipped around them in the wind, and the sun beat down with intensity that would have been lethal to most galactic life forms. The thermal radiation levels are beyond survivable limits, Wisptar communicated, its gaseous form flickering with patterns of distress. The solar energy should cause immediate cellular damage. The dehydration rate should kill any organic being within hours. Foster wiped sweat from her forehead and smiled. Humans have been living in deserts for millennia. We've built entire civilizations in environments like this. The key is understanding how to work with the heat instead of fighting it. As they prepared to return to Haven 7, the alien delegation sat in stunned silence. They had witnessed humans thriving in the crushing depths of the ocean, the frozen wastelands of the poles, and the burning heat of the desert. Each environment would have been instantly lethal to most galactic species, yet humans had not only survived but built permanent settlements and research facilities. Every major ecosystem on your planet is a death world by galactic standards, Zexthara finally observed, its skin showing colors that indicated profound shock. Yet you have adapted to all of them. You have turned the most hostile planet the known galaxy into a garden of civilization. The aliens were beginning to understand that Earth wasn't just dangerous because of its environment. It was dangerous because it had produced a species that could thrive anywhere, adapt to anything, and find opportunity in the most impossible conditions. They were looking at beings who had been forged by a planet that seemed designed to create the ultimate survivors. The conference room aboard Haven 7 had been converted into a display center showcasing the full scope of human achievement, and the alien delegation was about to discover their greatest nightmare: humanity's unlimited capacity for creative problem-solving. Dr. Rachel Stone, the station's historian, stood before a massive holographic display that showed the timeline of human civilization, her calm demeanor masking the terror she was about to unleash on 5 unprepared alien minds. "We thought you might want to understand how humans have survived and thrived on Earth." Stone began, activating the first section of the display. "Our history is essentially a story of overcoming impossible odds through adaptation and innovation." The hologram showed Earth during the last ice age, when massive glaciers covered most of the planet and temperatures plummeted to levels that should have wiped out all complex life. The alien delegation watched in growing horror as primitive. Humans not only survived these conditions but began to spread across the frozen landscape. Dr. Zexthara's skin shifted through rapid cycles of blue and yellow, indicating extreme distress. The climate data shows global temperatures that would kill most galactic species. How did your ancestors survive when your planet became uninhabitable? Stone smiled as she manipulated the display to show early human settlements. We didn't adapt biologically to the cold. We adapted technologically. Humans learned to make fire, build shelters, and create clothing from animal skins. When the environment tried to kill us, we changed our behavior instead of waiting for evolution to change our bodies. The next section of the timeline showed humanity's response to various catastrophes, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, plagues that killed millions, earthquakes that destroyed entire civilizations. In each case, the aliens expected to see collapse and extinction. Instead, they witnessed recovery, adaptation, and technological advancement. This pattern is impossible, Vorkalen chimed, its crystalline structure resonating with harmonics of confusion. Catastrophic events should reduce population and technological capability. Your species appears to grow stronger after each disaster. Colonel Mike Davis joined the presentation, bringing with him several examples of human military technology and tactical thinking. The aliens had requested information about human defensive capabilities, not realizing they were about to witness the full scope of humanity's talent for creative destruction. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, Davis explained, setting up a tactical display that showed various historical battlefields. Each conflict has taught us new ways to overcome obstacles, solve problems, and adapt to changing conditions. The aliens watched in growing alarm as Davis demonstrated how humans had turned every aspect of their environment into potential weapons or tools. Mountains became fortresses, rivers became barriers or highways, forests became hiding places or resources for construction. Weather patterns were studied and used for strategic advantage. Even the movements of animals were incorporated into military planning. You weaponize your environment, HiveMind Unit 7742 pulsed, its collective consciousness struggling to process the implications. Every natural feature becomes part of your tactical thinking. This suggests a level of environmental manipulation that borders on planetary engineering. Davis nodded approvingly. Humans excel at turning disadvantages into advantages. If we can't go through an obstacle, we go around it, over it, or under it. If we can't destroy something directly, we find indirect methods. If we can't solve a problem with existing technology, we invent new technology. Engineer Sandra Kim and inventor Joe Martinez arrived with examples of human innovation that made the aliens step back in fear. They carried devices and blueprints that represented humanity's casual approach to solving impossible problems through applied creativity. This is a simple water purification system, Kim explained, showing them a device that could turn any liquid into safe drinking water. Humans developed this because we needed clean water in environments where natural water sources were contaminated or unavailable. The aliens stared at the device in horror. It represented technology that could make any planet habitable, regardless of local conditions. To them, it wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon against the natural order of the universe. Martinez pulled up holographic blueprints of various human inventions, from simple machines to complex spacecraft. Each design showed the same terrifying pattern, humans identifying a problem and then creating technology to overcome it, regardless of how impossible the solution might seem. Humans don't accept limitations, Martinez explained cheerfully, apparently unaware of the growing terror in his audience. If something can't be done with current technology, we develop new technology. If new technology isn't enough, we combine multiple technologies in creative ways. The aliens watched as the display showed human achievements that violated several fundamental principles of galactic engineering. Spacecraft that could survive atmospheric entry through planets with crushing gravity and corrosive atmospheres. Habitats that could maintain life support in environments that should kill anything organic. Weapons that could level mountains or destroy entire cities. Your species treats impossibility as a temporary inconvenience, Wisptar observed, its gaseous form flickering with patterns that suggested pure terror. You create solutions to problems that most galactic civilizations would consider permanently unsolvable. The most terrifying moment came when the aliens realized the scope of human theoretical thinking. Davis and Martinez began discussing hypothetical scenarios casually, as if they were planning weekend activities rather than contemplating technologies that could reshape entire star systems. We've run calculations on asteroid mining operations, Martinez mentioned offhandedly. The energy requirements for moving planetary-scale masses are significant, but not impossible if you use gravity assist techniques and nuclear pulse propulsion. There's also been some interesting work on stellar engineering, Davis added. Theoretical stuff, mostly, but the math works out for building structures around stars to collect energy output. The alien delegation exchanged communications that clearly conveyed panic. These humans were casually discussing projects that would require the combined resources of entire galactic civilizations, and they were treating them as engineering problems rather than impossibilities. Mimic form 23's perfect features showed signs of strain as it processed the implications. You are describing technologies that could threaten the stability of entire star systems. Most galactic species develop such capabilities over millions of years, if at all. Your species has existed for less than 200,000 years. Stone. Return to the historical display showing how human innovation had accelerated over time. The rate of technological development was increasing exponentially, with more advancement in the last century than in all previous human history combined. The pattern suggests unlimited potential for growth, Stone explained. Humans don't just adapt to their environment. We constantly push the boundaries of what's possible, and each breakthrough opens up new possibilities for further advancement. The aliens realized they were looking at something unprecedented in galactic history, a species with no apparent limits on their creative potential. Every obstacle humans encountered became a problem to be solved rather than a barrier to be accepted. Every impossibility became a challenge to be overcome through applied intelligence and determination. Your species represents an existential threat to the natural order, Zexthara finally announced, its skin showing colors that indicated deep fear. You don't just survive in impossible conditions. You remake impossible conditions to suit your needs. You are planet shapers, system changers, reality modifiers. The humans looked at each other with expressions of pride and confusion. To them, innovation and adaptation were simply part of being human. They couldn't understand why the aliens found their creativity so terrifying. We just solve problems, Kim said with a shrug. It's what humans do. We see something that needs fixing and we figure out how to fix it. The alien delegation huddled together, their various forms of communication creating a complex dialogue that lasted for hours. When they finally turned back to the humans, their expressions and emanations conveyed a level of fear that bordered on existential terror. They were beginning to understand that humanity wasn't just unusual or dangerous. They were looking at a species that could potentially remake the galaxy according to their own vision, and the aliens weren't sure whether that was the most wonderful or most terrifying possibility they had ever encountered. The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across several kilometers of crystalline architecture, its walls pulsing with the combined thoughts and communications of over 10,000 different species. At the center of this vast space, Dr. Zexthara stood before the assembled representatives, its oil-slick skin shifting through patterns of colors that conveyed urgency and barely controlled terror. Honored members of the council, Zexthara began, its voice carrying harmonics that translated into concepts of grave concern across thousands of different sensory systems. We have completed our evaluation of the species known as humanity, and our findings require immediate attention from this body. The chamber fell silent as representatives from across the galaxy focused their attention on the xenobiology team's report. Some communicated through bioluminescent displays, others through electromagnetic pulses, and still others through quantum entanglement patterns that existed beyond normal space-time. Despite their vast differences, they all shared the same growing sense of unease, Verkalen chimed in with crystalline harmonics that resonated through the chamber's acoustic systems. The planet designated as Earth has been confirmed as a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest classification in our database. The environmental conditions are so hostile that complex life should not exist there at all. A wave of shocked communications rippled through the assembly. Class 12 Deathworlds were theoretical constructs, environments so deadly that they were used as examples of places where life was impossible. The idea that such a world could produce a spacefaring civilization was beyond most species' ability to comprehend. HiveMind Unit 7742's organic components pulsed with patterns that conveyed concepts of impossibility and contradiction. Its collective consciousness shared its observations with the assembly, transmitting data that showed human biological capabilities that violated fundamental laws of organic chemistry and physics. The human specimens display bone density, muscle efficiency, and cardiovascular performance that exceed theoretical maximums for organic life, the HiveMind communicated. Their bodies operate at stress levels that would kill most galactic species, yet they consider these conditions normal and even engage in recreational activities that push their systems to even greater extremes. The gaseous form of Wisptar flickered with patterns that suggested existential horror as it added its observations. Their atmospheric requirements include 21% oxygen, a concentration that would be lethal to most life forms. They breathe what is essentially a combustible gas mixture and have built their entire civilization around harnessing controlled explosions for energy and transportation. The perfect features of Mimic Form 23 showed strain as it delivered perhaps the most disturbing part of the report. Human psychology displays patterns that should result in immediate social collapse. They maintain stability through conflict, cooperation through competition, and trust through systematic deception. Their emotional complexity should paralyze their decision-making processes, yet somehow produces enhanced problem-solving capabilities. The Galactic Council's response was immediate and varied. The crystalline beings of the Nexus Collective resonated with harmonics of disbelief. The energy entities from the quantum realms fluctuated between dimensions in patterns that suggested panic. The machine intelligences of the synthetic worlds processed the data and immediately began calculating threat assessments. Elder Kurthax of the ancient worlds, a being so old that its species had forgotten its original form and now existed, as pure thought, projected concepts of concern that reached every mind in the chamber. You describe a species that exists in defiance of natural law. What are your recommendations for containment? Dr. Zexthara S. skin shifted to deep purple patterns that indicated the gravity of their conclusions. Traditional containment protocols are insufficient. Human adaptability means that any environment we could create to restrict them would simply become another challenge for them to overcome. Their technological development rate suggests that within a few centuries, they could possess capabilities that rival or exceed those of the most advanced galactic civilizations. The chamber erupted in communications of alarm and debate. Some species called for immediate military intervention, while others argued for diplomatic isolation. The warlike species saw humans as potential threats to be eliminated, while the more peaceful civilizations recognized them as possible allies against unknown dangers. Elder Mordok of the Warrior clans transmitted battle-tested wisdom through electromagnetic pulses that carried the weight of 1,000,000 conflicts. If these humans are as adaptable as you describe, they cannot be contained through force. Any attempt to restrict them would only teach them new ways to overcome obstacles. We would be providing them with training rather than limitation. The debate continued for cycles, with thousands of species offering their perspectives on the human problem. Some proposed quarantine protocols, others suggested cultural exchange programs, and a few recommended immediate integration into galactic society under carefully controlled conditions. Finally, Elder Zinara of the diplomatic corps, whose species had successfully mediated conflicts between incompatible life forms for millions of years, projected a solution that resonated with practical wisdom. We propose a dual classification for Earth and its inhabitants. They will be designated as a preserved world, protected from outside interference to prevent contamination of galactic culture with their dangerously adaptive traits. The proposal continued with careful precision. Simultaneously, we extend an invitation for limited cultural and scientific exchange under strict protocols. Humanity will be welcomed as potential allies, but with clear understanding that their development must be monitored and, when necessary, guided to prevent galactic destabilization. The vote was close, with many species abstaining due to uncertainty about the best course of action. In the end, the proposal passed by a narrow margin, establishing humanity's unique status in galactic politics. Back aboard Haven 7, Commander Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Campbell received the official communication from the Galactic Council. The message was transmitted in perfect English, its tone carefully crafted to convey both welcome and warning. "Greetings to the people of Earth," the message began. "After careful evaluation, the Galactic Council has determined that your species represents a unique phenomenon in our galaxy's history. Your planet will be classified as a preserved world, protected from interference while you continue your natural development." Morrison read the next section with growing amusement. "You are simultaneously invited to participate in limited cultural and scientific exchanges with selected galactic civilizations. However, we must request that you remain within your current solar system until further evaluation can be completed." Dr. Campbell laughed as she translated the diplomatic language. "They're scared of us, Jake. They want us as allies, but they're terrified of what we might do if we spread across the galaxy too quickly." The final section of the message contained the greatest compliment humanity had ever received, though it was disguised as a warning. In the event of existential threats to galactic civilization, Earth may be contacted for assistance in dealing with challenges that conventional galactic forces cannot overcome. Your species' unique adaptation capabilities may prove essential for survival against unknown dangers. Morrison looked out at the stars, understanding the full implications of the message. Humanity had been simultaneously quarantined and recruited, feared and respected, isolated and welcomed. They were too dangerous to let loose on the galaxy, but too valuable to ignore completely. "So we're the galaxy's emergency response team," Morrison observed with a grin. "They don't want us around unless something terrible happens, and then we're their first call?" Dr. Campbell nodded, recognizing the irony of their situation. "We've been classified as the galaxy's strangest deathworld because we're too successful. We're so good at surviving and adapting that we scare species who have been around for millions of years longer than us." As the alien ship prepared to depart, taking with it a report that would change galactic politics forever, the humans aboard Haven 7 felt a mixture of pride and anticipation. They had been recognized as something unprecedented in galactic history, a species with unlimited potential for adaptation and growth. The galaxy had essentially told them to stay in their room until they were needed, but they had also been acknowledged as the beings other civilizations would call when the impossible needed to be made possible. For humanity, being feared for their competence was the highest honor they could imagine. The message concluded with words that would become legendary. "In human history, welcome to the galactic community. Please stay exactly where you are, but if the universe tries to end, we will call you immediately." And in true human fashion, they interpreted this as the greatest compliment they had ever received.